I'm going to record this. Should be recording. All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for joining us. So this is the last part of our three week series, or I guess it's been over a month that we've been doing this for the animal science. So we've had the livestock program, understanding a livestock sale, and then the last one we did was Debbie and I did programs that are available across New York State for livestock. So this one is really on the dog program. So I've got Riley and Christina and Rachel will all be presenting throughout this presentation. We are recording it, so if you see that, we will put it up on the YouTube page. So all of our stuff that we've been doing has been put up on the New York State 4-H YouTube page. If you're not familiar with that, that is there. We've had the livestock summit's been up there, and these have been up there in Debbie's Dairy Bowl ones are all up there for the kids that are into that. So just as aware. So what I'm going to kind of start is understanding the dog program, because I know we have several that are fairly new to the 4-H program. And when I say new, right, like under a year or some are under 2 months, right? So, and this is a pretty good sized program and has a lot of potential in it. And there's a lot of unknowns, and I would also say rules and regulations as far as dogs, very similar to horse in that. So I kind of wanted to go over this, try to answer some questions. You guys have questions, don't be afraid to unmute, ask your question, raise your hand, whatever it can be, and we'll try to answer your questions as we go. So I'm going to do the logistics and the rules and regs, and then they're going to kind of go through the programs that they offer in their counties for you guys. So the first one we have is understand the dog program, and let's get to see if this works. All right. So what I'm going to kind of go through is, if you're not really familiar with this, is the form code. So PW Wood and all extensions are part of a form code. This is on 1501. Page 22 is the dog. So if you're looking to find it, that's where it's located, is in the form code. And we're going to kind of just go through this form code. It is all on the New York State 4-H page under educators. Information on that, but I kind of wanted to see it because I know we all don't necessarily read it. So as we kind of go through this, feel free to ask questions, but all dogs must be registered through the 4-HCC registration process, and we'll talk about that here shortly. The dogs are the responsibility of the owner, and the owner is fully and completely responsible for their own actions of the dog, right? So it's basically taking all of the dog's responsibility and putting it on the owner. Basically saying that CCE has no, or 4-H has no responsibility for that owner. Participants have to have proof of updated rabies, right? Rabies are good if they're under a year the first time, or good for a year. After that, it's every 3 years on that. So right on the rabies, when you're getting them, I would expect that you would have copy of a rabies. So what I tell everybody is keep a copy of the rabies right on file in your office. So you have that. So if there's ever a question, you have a copy of the rabies on that. CC is prohibited from sponsoring rabies clinics, right? So we're not allowed to offer rabies clinics in any form, any way at all. Dogs only should be allowed on CC's premises if they're there for activities in the following circumstances, right? So you shouldn't be having dogs on your property unless they're a seeing eye dog, visually impaired, for a volunteer employee or a program participant, and the dog is under care of an enrolled 4-H club member. The dog is under the supervision of a person who's participating in a 4-H dog obedience program. So really, educational purposes or a sport dog are the only ones that really should be on campus. Going back to one of the days when I was in county, yeah, the puppy would show up, the average puppy would show up, that type of stuff. Thinking about dogs with blindness or deafness, they are allowed to participate in the 4-H dog program, right? Dogs that are lame or other have health challenges may participate if the handler brings a statement from the veterinarian basically saying that it won't be harmful, that it's not harmful to the animal. So basically, is it have a limp from getting hit or an injury or a birth defect, right? This is a key one. really 4-H leaders, superintendents, instructors have the authority to dismiss. If you're finding something that is dangerous, that doesn't seem right, right? And this is not just dogs, any animals. If there's a safety issue, you guys have the right to send them out or to send them back, right? Send them home, because it's all about safety. Big thing is we want to have safety. When we're thinking about all these programs, right? Like we're all good until something happens, right? So we're really there to protect ourselves and to protect the kids that are in part of this program and the people that are spectating. So as a leader, as an educator, that's really your responsibility, is making sure everybody is safe, and that the dog is safe, for not only the handler, the kid, but all the surroundings along with it. You know, and the other thing is to think about when you think about this is dogs act differently than at a public place or in a group setting than they do at home. You know, for instance, we have a lab puppy that's just over a year old. I took it to the park last night for a walk, and there was a dog that was completely fine, but the minute I got close to it, that dog lost its marbles, right? The owner had everything it could possibly do to control it because it was not friendly, right? And we're out in the sticks, right? And you know, it's a 1,500-acre park, and she wasn't expecting to see anybody. So realizing that that dog was fine until it saw another dog, and that can happen. Dogs are only to be utilized in educational exhibits or demonstrations. They must be accessible to the public unless they're under control of 4-H member who owns the dog. All right, so just remember that they shouldn't be up to the public, right? You need to, if you're running a dog show, anything like that, the dogs really should be separated away from the public, have a separate spot for them, that type of stuff, especially if you're at your county fair. Basically set up a landing spot for them. Obviously, CEC prohibits wolf hybrids, or animals with bite history. You may not think this is back 15 years ago in my 4-H. When I was at the county, we actually had a family that wanted us to do wolf hybrids on that. They actually raised them, right? And that was a big no-no on that. Here, and I will have this link at the end. An animal that's dangerous, there is a law, a New York State open legislation on the New York State Senate page that talks about what is a dangerous animal, and I'll have that link here shortly for you guys to see that. Just as a note on the form code, it is approximately 40% of all liability claims filed on homeowners, tenant, and condominiums are because of dogs. That's why it's so important to think about this, and that's why we've taken it so seriously. Is 40% of all claims are dogs, right? Like, so it's extremely important for us to remember this, right? We want to make sure that our dog programs are able to sustain themselves and to continue to go. So we need to follow rules, regulations, and make sure we're providing a safe environment at all times. I'm just going to check the chat quick. See, what about puppies who are too young for the rabies vaccination? And we'll actually talk about puppies here in a short period. Any puppy that theoretically does not have rabies should not be participating at this point, right? So I think rabies are at 3 to 4 months on that. So I think even in dog obedience classes, they're still supposed to have rabies on that.
Right, because some of my participants said that like 6 months is when the vet recommended they get rabies. So, and then the educator who like facilitates the dog obedience, she said that it's really important that puppies get socialized. So she really wants them in the program. I don't know.
So that's a question that I would 100% send it to PW Wood, right? Like, if that's a question that you have on that. So what it says on, you know, in all of our stuff is that they're supposed to have it after 4 months, right? So I'll be honest with you, like, we've done it in our own county, but I can't recommend that, you know, to that on basically policy on there. So, but the rabies are supposed to. Theoretically, is there any passive immunity from their parents? You know, that's a question too, right? I don't know the answer to that. I'll be honest with you, Christina.
Okay, thank you.
Clover buds. So you all recently must have gotten the new clover bud policy. If you've gotten that, hopefully you've looked through it. There's not a lot of changes. We just really cleaned it up a little bit, and just made, you know, took some of the the questions out on that. So cloverbuds are welcome to participate based on dog obedience programs. Just remember that the dog, like every other species, it's inappropriate for that dog, for the cloverbud to have full responsibility of training, grooming, showing that dogs. Puppies are small, they're difficult to handle even for adults. Should the cloverbud policy is recommending training of puppies must be reserved for youth older than cloverbuds, but special care should still be taken care of them, right? So a lot of times you see that come in where the cloverbud has got a puppy and maybe an older kid that's working with them, right? Like there's an older sibling, something like that, that you're working with them. Exhibitions of cloverbuds must be designed to provide a safe environment, and one-on-one assistance for all participants must be available. The dog should be well trained, right? So they're really looking for more of a push button dog that's been well trained for the cloverbuds on that. Really, it then comes down to what is the safety? What is the safety? You know, I understand some of the dogs that are 6 months are better trained than that are 6 years old. So it's really evaluating what is specific and what that animal is specifically best trained for. So if you guys haven't seen this, on the bottom of the form code, if you go on that form code that's on the New York State 4-H office, at the very bottom, there's approved activities. I'm sure if you've been around, you've seen this on that. So these are approved activities, and just because they're on here doesn't mean necessarily that you can do them. So if just pulling out the dogs, so this is a list of them that you can see on there. Dogs in nursing homes that are well trained and screened, dogs and dog obedience classes, and open obstacles are allowed for dogs on here. All right. The one that's the prohibited one, which is the last page on there, it talks about no dog dips, dog washes, or open dog shows on that. So those are all prohibited. It also talks about rabies clinics, and there's no rabies clinics allowed on that. So if you haven't seen these are on the bottom of the form code. It's just a quick look at if you ever have a question about what is prohibited and what is acceptable from PW Wood's office. I always say, if you're questioning something, probably your executive director is the same way, is let's look at talking to PW Wood and working through it, right? Sometimes if you can work through, sometimes if it's something that's typically they would not approve, but maybe walk them through that. Maybe it's just a few steps that you can't do on that. Forms to have on file. So these are key things that you've got to have on file. Any kid that's participating in the dog program, you must have an animal release liability and indemnification agreement. Basically, it's just talking about everything we talked about. The control of the animals, the physical having it present, the release of liability, and the hold harmless. All right. So this should be on hand every year. So come October, November, you need to have a new one for the next year, right? This is good for 1 year for the project year on that. Animal registration form. This is also on that, and I'll show those where they are in a minute. Is just basically the male, female, animal's name, animal's breed, owner's name, address, telephone number, right? And just if this is a rescue, and if there's ever been a dog history of dog, if this dog has ever bitten a person, right? So you need to look at these, because if the dog has been a person, that becomes another issue, right? That's where you need to really pay attention to that. This question is on here. Do you or the owner of a dog have insurance coverage? Yes or no? So in the past, prior to me coming in here, that was a requirement to participate in the dog program. Those that have been around a little while realize that that was basically excluding kids instead of being an inclusive environment if they couldn't afford it on there. So that question is now just asking on that. You may have a family that refuses to answer too, right? And I think that's okay. I don't think we can force it, but that was a requirement years ago. Not even years ago, 2 years ago. I think it was a year and a half ago it actually got changed on that. So that is a question that is on there. It's basically just asking if they have insurance on there. You can't deny them or just because they don't have it, just as a friendly reminder. So on here, this is right on the New York State page. This just puts them all right together. It talks about the New York State dog policy, the liability, and the animal registration. When you go on that page, you'll see all these things on here. Just print them off. Every dog kid that's participating in the program should have it. If they're participating in your 4-H show, they need to have it. If they're coming to State Fair, they should have this on files. So I like to tell everybody, if you have anybody that's going to be participating in the dog program, fill it out every year, get it done with, so you're not chasing it, and keep those files right there. I think it's important to take them with you if you're having a dog event at your fairgrounds, anywhere. Take it with you so you have it, so you can always double check with it in case something does happen. You just never know. Key points. The resources are all on the NewYorkState4H.org. So you can go on there. The form code that I went over and the policy I went over are on there. This is a key one that there was some confusion, even just recently on it. You cannot discriminate against breeds of dogs, right? Pit bulls are acceptable. Akitas are acceptable, right? Like, you are no longer able to discriminate on the breed of dogs. That's fairly new in the last year and a half, on that. And actually, I caught it in the fall. It was still on the form code that I actually took to PW Wood because they actually still had it on there that they were discriminating, and that is no longer allowed that it can discriminate. It's basically you're looking at the safety of the animal, right? Like, you need to take that choice of every animal, making sure that safety on that. Forms must be filled out yearly following the 4-H calendar year. All right, some opportunities in the dog program. I'm gonna just kind of go through this quick. We did talk about this in another workshop, is the March Dog Madness, which we have this coming weekend. I think we have 50 people coming to that. Is just an educational program for the day. It's 7 workshops that we have right on campus. Skillathon. So we have the New York State Dog Skillathon, which is held at the New York State Fair. Kids can participate whether they're showing or not. It is just a fun opportunity for kids to do it. It is a challenge. They have from breeds. They actually look at x-rays. They have dog parts and more that the kids can participate on. That is actually during the State Fair show in the Coliseum. The New York State Fair 4-H Phenology booth. This is for any counties that are interested. You can come up to the booth from 10 to 6 any day at State Fair. If you want a day and just have your county bring some kids up, they can bring a dog that's registered in the program and interact with the public on that, asking questions, answering stuff. There's a bunch of educational tools that our volunteers have already put together for that is basically there. We're always looking for counties to participate in that. That's been going for about 20 years. So Liz Chambliski from Allegheny County actually coordinates that. The New York State Photo Video Poetry Contest, which is during State Fair. This has not been in the 4-H book before. This has never been in the book. I'm working with Autumn to actually put it in the book this year so kids can participate in this and actually get a premium for participating in this. So it will be in the evaluation book this year for the 4-H building at State Fair. So this will be new in there. Dog Bowl. So we did have Allegheny hosted a dog bowl this year. And that is something that they're going to continue to host and offer. And then there's just some, resources on here. The dangerous dog. Here's the legislation on there. It's the New York Senate, the legislation laws AGM. So that talks about the dangerous dog policy. If you ever have a question, because you never know when you need it. And then the New York State 4H.org page has got the form code and the dog policy on that. All right. Any other questions? So if the kids are only using my dogs, they don't need to fill out the animal registration. They actually, Taylor, they do. So because basically, if we go back to that, let me see if I can go back to that. It's not going to let me, but if you go back to it, it says the owner would actually have to fill it out with the kids that are on it. So that needs to be filled out even if it is your kids. I'm going to see if I can pull it back up again. So here it is. So basically the owner handles signature, right? So you need to, so this is where it comes into that you have to fill this out on there and then the animal registration form. All right. So this does need to be filled out for everybody on there. Even if they're using your dogs, right? Then you and the owner and the handler, right? So should be filling this out together.
Okay, even if it's the same dog over and over again?
So how many kids are you having, Taylor? Are you using it, basically using your dog as a demo?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't
And are
know
you
how many
using
kids yet.
it
I'm
just
just
for like a workshop, or are you using it for actually like a lease type of thing for the kids?
I don't know yet. I was thinking about starting like a dog program with my kids, with my 4-H program, doing like after school lessons. But I just didn't know. I mean, the kids don't have dogs, so they would be using my dogs.
So you would
So
want yours on file. You would want this on file for you as the educator, right? Like
yeah,
you want and on that. So the other thing is I would talk to your executive director would be my suggestion, and to figure out the rules and regs that are going along with that as far as you using it with the school. Are you taking it into a school?
yeah,
So then you need to work with that school district also.
okay,
Some schools are much stricter than others, as far as allowing dogs in, right? Some schools have a policy, no dogs, no pets. Others have just therapy, right? So you need to work, I think there's a joint venture there you need to work out and figure it out
okay,
and talk to that school directly.
cool.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And then I think the other question I think that we had in here, and actually as I'm thinking about this, Kristen, I'm actually gonna find out that question for you because as I think about it, I need to know, I need to find out more about that question. You know, I think I gave you an answer, but I'm not sure if that's the correct answer. So let me find out more about that for you. All right, Kristen, about the puppies and their rabies vaccination. So
Sounds good, thank you.
with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Christina, and she is going to talk about Deanne.
Yeah, can I ask you a question about the state fair booth? So
Yep.
the kids do want to come up. We live about, I don't know, a little over 3 hours away, so it may not be a day trip for us. How does that work if they bring their own dog, and where does the housing happen? Is what happens?
So that's where it gets tricky with the dogs,
Okay,
right? So if they're just coming for the day, that's not a problem. We get them in on that. If they are staying overnight,
right.
Rachel, have you done this in the past with your dogs overnight? Okay.
I have an unrelated question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So with that, and that's something that Autumn, we've worked with Autumn on. So that's a question we can send to Liz and Autumn and to work it out. So it ends up being what we can work out and host. So in the past, we've worked that the dogs can stay there in a location.
Okay.
It may not be up in the dorms,
Okay.
but there might be an alternative location that we can have the dogs in a kennel.
Yeah, they usually, when they do come up for the show, they sleep in, hotels and things. But I'm just thinking if I can open it up to a wider range of kids, I may be able to get more to participate. So is
Yeah.
there something that they can do in that booth? I've been there 1,000 times. Other than bringing their dog.
So there's other activities that interact with the public. There's
Okay.
educational stuff they have going on that Liz has
Okay.
set up that they just basically interact with the public on different things. It
Cool.
is a pretty busy booth.
Yeah.
I would say for the most part.
Okay. All right. I'll look into it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ryan, I have another question real quick, if you
All
have.
right, where am I going?
This
Okay.
is Tammy from St. Lawrence County.
Yeah.
We have like dog nights for animal nights here, and we have had like the SPCA come in, or sometimes in our summer camp, we would have like police come in with their dogs. Is that not allowed then?
So if you're bringing in a presenter for
Yeah,
educational purposes, as long as I would definitely check on that, making sure that they have their proper paperwork, right? There's, rabies, that type of stuff.
okay, but that would
We've
be.
all done it. We've all done it, Tamara. I mean, we've all done it. We've all used it, right? It's just
Yeah.
making sure that there's, they have their own rabies, that type of stuff on there. Even when we're doing dog obedience, the instructors bring in their own dog, right? That
Mhm.
may not be something that's going through. So it's all about making sure you have the proper paperwork and that, you're following, you're following protocol on that.
Okay.
Big thing is making sure that they have, the dog, the police is completely different than the SPCA too, right? Like there's
Right.
just different levels on that, but making sure that you're doing that.
Okay.
Rachel, I think you had a question, right?
Okay, so if families are opting out or saying that they do not have insurance that is covering their dog, and that dog were to go, thankfully, this has never ever happened, but it doesn't happen until it does. If that dog were to bite someone or cause physical damage to someone or another animal, who is responsible for that medical bill then?
So that's a great question. It's going to end up being coming down to getting your accident report, right? Does that go on to PW Wood? Does that go on our risk management then? Right. And that's where it's making sure you have your forms that are filled out properly. So it's going to go to the individual's insurance first, no matter what. Right. And then if there's alternative beyond that, then it would be secondary. Just like every other accident, right? Like it goes to the individuals first, right? And then secondary.
Okay. Thank you.
Christina, you ready? I think that's the questions. And you guys, there's definitely questions that can be asked throughout. I am by no means the expert at this. I'm learning. I'm trying to stay a few steps ahead of you guys. As the dog program has not been my solid program over the years.
All right, so I have a few slides here. I'll make this quick. I don't drag it out. I'm going to give a little bit of information about our dog program here in Orleans County 4-H. I am Christina Gabalski. I am the 4-H program coordinator in Orleans County. I love dogs, but I'm not a dog expert. So this is really, my whole story here. We have a healthy dog program here right now. We've got a couple of clubs. And we have our dog shows at fair for the 4-Hers, but it really is, I've been very, very blessed to come into the program and have very knowledgeable and dedicated volunteers. That includes local kennel owners. I've got groomers, trainers, and also, alumni who are just very knowledgeable and are super helpful. So that really has been vital to keeping our dog program going. So I want to make sure that people know it's the volunteers, it's not me, that is keeping our dog program going here in Orleans County. Currently, we have 2 clubs. In the past, we've had up to 3 dog clubs in the county, and we also had a dog program development committee at that time to kind of, help with communication between the clubs and organize and staff some of our countywide dog events. Right now, we have 2 clubs, and it's interesting because there's 2 separate clubs, but they've started holding their meetings together. So they meet twice a month, and it alternates between a Monday and a Thursday. But the 2 separate clubs who have, their own leaders and everything, they're actually meeting together now twice a month on our fairgrounds. COVID hit us kind of hard with the dog program. And also we lost a real engaged family that moved out of state. So we have our ups and downs, but there's definitely, I get a lot of interest in the dog program every year with new families who would like to come in with dogs. And we've been at fair, we have shows and events. During our fair, we do dog grooming and handling. There's a knowledge contest. There's a costume contest that week. We have obedience and rally classes, agility demo, also agility show and fun classes. And then also dogs, we have a small animal grand master competition. Dogs are part of that at the end of fair week. So any, youth who have gotten master showmen in rabbits, also mini horses, poultry, and then the dogs are part of that small animal grandmaster at our fair. Also, Orleans last year, we started a new agreement with Monroe County where they do not have a fair option now for their 4-H youth. we have an agreement where youth that are enrolled in Monroe County can show at our Orleans County 4-H fair. So we started that last year, and it impacted most heavily our horse program. But I know our leaders are, in constant communication with leaders in Monroe County for their dog program to help them if they want to come in and show at the Orleans County Fair. I've been also fortunate. We typically have had several 4-Hers that go on to state fair and show at state fair, and that again is due to dedicated volunteers that are helpful in getting that all together, deciding who's qualified to move on to state fair and who would like to go and help facilitate that. So that has been super important. We do have dog knowledge as part of the dog program. We call our 5-star testing, which is held once a year. And there's 5 levels of knowledge tests. And we recommend that a youth only does 1 level per year. They kind of focus on whatever requirements are for that various level from 1 up to 5. Once they have passed all those 5 tests, and it could take 5 years to do that, it could take a little more, but once they do that, then they receive a personalized dog leash. So that's a way that we bring the knowledge part into the dog program. And also there is the kind of the little dog bowl knowledge test that we have at fair. We do agility testing as well. This is an opportunity to prepare youth who intend to participate in agility classes at our 4-H fair. That's usually done in June. And if there's, if the leaders and the dog superintendent feel that animal is not ready, then they don't go on to do those classes. But it's a kind of way to check and make sure that those youth and their dogs are ready to do the agility at fair. In the past, I know Rachel's going to talk about like a dog clinic, dog camp in her county. We did have an annual dog clinic. That was something that, COVID hit very hard. We haven't been able to get that back up and running again, but that was a yearly event where we had a day where there was workshops. You can see we've got a canine officer that came and did demonstrations. Kids would do, even different canine related crafts. They'd have knowledge clinics. So that's something we've done in the past. I'm really hoping that, maybe that's something we can do again in the future, are the dog clinics. And that's it for my slides. I'm gonna stop sharing. If anybody has any particular questions, again, just I'm very fortunate. I've got one alum that's at Cobleskill right now. We've had a couple go through the canine program at Cobleskill. Riley's cousin, as a matter of fact, is one of my alums that's been super helpful. Mentoring youth that are coming up, helping them get to dog shows, national level dog shows, youth that are interested in kind of pursuing canine, perhaps as a career. And Kristen's got a question there, and I probably this is for anybody. Do your youth also participate in AKC shows? Have you noticed major differences between 4-H and AKC? I'm probably not the best one to answer that question.
I can chime in just because
Yeah.
I grew up showing in both.
Yeah, Go
I
ahead,
know
Riley.
that there's certain, I don't know the exact rules, but I know like once you complete a level in AKC, you have to go to a higher level in 4-H because you're not competing at the same, like AKC is a much more competitive platform. So they make you go into a higher class for 4-H just because it's a fair playing game. But you could definitely tell the kids who participate in both. I mean, you're getting more knowledge from, or not more knowledge. You're getting more experience doing both. But AKC is a higher level. So, and I think 4-H, a lot of times we follow kind of along similar guidelines. But we have our own as well. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say we have been working on that a little bit. The committee actually has been working on that, and one of the things they're working on is trying to streamline a little bit more, right? As we get going. That actually is a topic and a discussion at this week's March Dog Madness on Saturday, is how to compete in 4-H and where can you compete in other places. So Jacob is actually presenting that on Saturday also on that. And we actually have quite a few kids that are interested in that workshop.
Yeah.
Any other
sure.
questions
Yeah.
for Christina? I think we have Rachel on deck next.
Hi, everybody. I'm just gonna quickly share my my screen and we're gonna see. Oh, hey, there it is. Okay, hang on. Can everybody see?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, oh wait, oh. Let's see if I can present it. That'd be cool. Oh. There we go. Present. Perfect. Okay. So I am talking to, my name is Rachel. I'm a 4-H educator in Albany and Schenectady counties. Today I'm going to be talking about the 4-H County 4-H Dog Adventure Program. Those of you who have ever tried to do a day camp with PW Wood knows that PW Wood does not love the word camp. So for probably the first 15 years of this program, it was dog camp. For the past 5 years, it's been dog adventure. It is the exact same thing as it was when it was a camp. So we'll talk about it. So history of dog adventure, and I'm going to move all of your heads. So dog adventure actually is 20 years old. We ran it straight through the pandemic, which was really a blessing. It began in 2003 as a partner program between Albany County 4-H and Albany Obedience Club, which is a local program for basically dog people, but they were adults. Later, many years later, back in about 2017, it used to be held at the AOC grounds. They had a really nice indoor steel building and grounds for this. For a variety of reasons, we moved it back to our offices. Our offices have some grounds outside. You'll see that this picture on the left was taken on our offices because you can see that beautiful snow fence that we put up every year to accommodate dog adventure. And we can talk about that as well. Oh, let me go back. As well, because we don't have permanent fencing. We have kept a consistent program over the last 20 years, and it was one of the first programs we brought back in 2020. That year, like everything that year, was a weird year. We only took 10 kids and 10 dogs. We social distanced them. Our argument was that because of the dogs, we have to social distance the kids anyway, because we don't allow the dogs to mingle. So we did it masked and everything else. And in terms of using your own dog for programming, the brown dog in that picture is actually my dog Piper. So she comes and works at a lot of these programs. The goals of Dog Adventure, it was to increase interest in 4-H dog programming in both new 4-Hers and then as well as existing 4-Hers. A lot of our existing 4-Hers have a dog at home, whether or not they take a particular interest in raising, training, and showing that dog. But they often like to come, and then it's a great for our new 4-Hers because Albany is a rural, suburban, and urban county, meaning that kids who cannot have a project animal that is a sheep or a horse, they can have a dog in their suburban or urban home. We also increase 4-Her knowledge of responsible pet ownership. That has always been a big tenet of Dog Adventure. We also enhance the bond between 4-Hers and their dogs. We promote dog sports as well as positive dog ownership and canine-centric careers, and we allow kids to have fun in an outdoor setting. Logistics. This program has always been an interesting and logistical nightmare. We slash dream. It's wonderful. I love it. But we run it as one 5-day week every summer. It is usually the third week of July. We run it from 9 a.m. until noon every day because afternoon it gets a little hot. 4-Hers and their dogs are sorted into 3 groups that rotate through 3 stations each day. Stations include 2 active stations and a rest station. So the active stations, one is always dog agility. One is either rally or obedience, and then a third station is the rest station. That's where dogs are crated, and kids either they make a craft or they listen to a speaker who might be a veterinarian, a dog groomer, the police. We have had dog therapy people. We have had disc dogs come. This year I'm going to try to get a husky sled team to come. We've had them in the very distant past, but the kids love when they come because they can usually bring their huskies and like the summer apparatus that they use to teach. So usually like a scooter or a cart or whatever the dogs pull in the summer, or quad. And the kids love that. And then the rest station is a guest speaker or a craft. The crafts can be something as simple as making like salt dough, dog print ornament type of decorations. It could be, sometimes we'll do a service project for the local Humane Society. We've made snuffle mats or fleece dog toys, kind of whatever works there. I just got a question. What are the ages of the members? Do we ask parents to stay? The parents do not typically stay. Our 4-Hers who attend are usually the ages 9 to 18. It's a pretty widespread, but most of our kids stop attending when they're about 14 or 15. Parents typically don't stay. However, we did have a 5-year-old Cloverbud participate this past year, and her mom, the only reason she was able to participate is her mom came every day with her and held the dog's leash. It is not uncommon for us to have to work one-on-one with children. It seems the smaller the child, the bigger their dog. So sometimes we have to have an adult who is hands-on helping, usually holding onto the leash. We also utilize a variety of harnesses and other handling equipment to make that easier and give that child leverage if need be. So some considerations for that include proper supervision. We have a variety of staff who participate. I teach agility every year. I used to have a colleague, Brittany, some of you may know, who taught obedience. And then we have a variety of staff. My supervisor, Barb. Basically, it's all hands on deck for 4-H Dog Adventure, as well as some other staff, like our lovely publications assistant comes and does the crafts with our kids. So it's a lot of that, so to make sure that everyone is being properly supervised. Our equipment is a big consideration. So our equipment, you'll see here that the 4-H'er is named Jake, his dog is named Coco. We have a variety of 4-H dog equipment. A lot of it was donated over the years from previous volunteers. We years and years ago had a very active 4-H dog club that disbanded, but we have an active 4-H dog club again. That is kind of where we got it. We sort of lucked into it, and then also people getting out of dog agility or moving. We've kind of put the word out that we will take it and we store it. Fencing around all 4-H dog agility equipment. We put a snow fence. Our lovely maintenance man, Matt, puts that up every year so that they can't break free and just totally take off. When dogs are doing agility, they are that child and that dog are the only people and animals in that fence, so that we don't have any dog on dog confrontation, which can happen when dogs are kind of smushed together. And not every dog loves other dogs, and that's okay. So we also have some safety protocols. We make sure that every child has a properly leashed dog with a flat leash. We do not allow retractable leashes. I keep a wide variety of regular leashes in my office, so that if they come with something that we don't personally allow, as well as collars and harnesses, they can kind of safely switch out into that. We also make sure that all the dogs are socially distanced from each other. We say that we invented social distancing long before COVID at 4-H Dog Adventure, because we don't allow the dogs to come face to face, just because sometimes they can be a little testy with each other. And then we also teach proper leash safety. We never allow the kids to wrap or tie leashes to themselves because we don't want them to be dragged. We also keep an eye out on dog behavior. We have had dogs where we have had to gently speak to the family and have the dog not come back, but we will have the child come back, and they'll either use a loner dog or be a special helper. We always want it to be a positive experience for all youth. even if their dog pot can't come. Dog and child health protocols, we have first aid on site. Actually, the mom who stayed last year was an RN. So that was really nice. But we also require all dogs to be vaccinated for rabies, as all 4-H programs do, but we don't allow dogs to come before they're 1 year old. And then after, we had to add an upper age limit when a family tried to bring their 15-year-old dog to 4-H agility programs. So we now say between the ages of 1 and 12 that we also reserve the right to say no if we don't think the dog is having a really awesome time due to age or ability. And then we talked about the goals of the program, but your goals may be different, and that might lead to the type of program you have. So the impact of our program in its 20-year history, Dog Adventure has seen participants follow their interests in dogs to a variety of careers and hobbies. I went to Dog Adventure as a child for many, many, many years. And now I work for 4-H, so that's really cool. Our alumni include veterinarians, veterinary technicians, animal nutritionists, dog trainers, as well as people who have continued on in dog sports and dog obedience as a hobby. We try to keep tabs on those alumni because I often call them and ask them to come back as speakers. And then 4-Hers come back to Dog Adventure year after year. And sometimes we see them grow with multiple childhood dogs. So that's really fun. And that's kind of our program. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, and I see there's a message in the chat.
Rachel, one of the questions that I had, and this is a question that somebody else asked earlier, is what do you do to make sure your dog, any paperwork you do for your own dog if the kids are using it?
Great question. So first of all, we adopted our current dog as an adult dog. So we kept her for about 1.5 years before I brought her anywhere near my job or 4-H or 4-Hers in general, to be sure that she was of even temperament. She would I have thought about getting her therapy dog international tested just so that I have something to back up her positive behavior. The only problem is she would not pass the part of the exam where I have to leave her in a room and have her not fuss, just because she's very focused on me. But that's kind of, I keep her rabies forms on file. I do all the stuff with her. We give the kids a big talk at the very beginning about appropriate versus inappropriate behavior with dogs, as well as the warning signs of a dog that is about to bite, scratch, pull, whatever. That is a great consideration because it is at my own personal risk that I bring her. Yes.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
So as far as, like, I guess that's kind of general, but as far as chaperone requirements, are there specific numbers of chaperones needed for the number of dogs? I know there are with kids, but is there a minimum number?
No, but we try to keep, we actually have more chaperones or adults involved in this program than if we had just had, that same number of children coming. Because I see it as it's that many kids, but also that many dogs. So there's, if I have 10 kids, there's now 20 individuals that we're responsible for. And that can be its own thing. So for instance, the little girl on the left in this picture, her name is Maple, and she's a lot bigger now. I think this picture is from 2020, so it's amazing how big some of these kids in this picture have got. And it's so funny because the first year she came, the dog in the middle is Archie. He is an American hairless terrier, so he has no hair. So that's super fun about him. But she was petrified of dogs. She did not like her own dog. And one thing that she would do, and her parents did not inform us that she was afraid of dogs when they sent her. I think they just wanted like complete shock exposure therapy. I'm not sure. Is she would just like let his leash go and he'd just like wander away. And we're like, you can't let him go. And she's like, I don't like him. And anyway, she loves him now, as you can see. That's her sister, Louisa, also in the picture. So you have to kind of keep in track both, the quirks every child may have, but also the quirks every dog may have. Thankfully, Archie was not a runner. He would just kind of wander off slowly into the grass and then come back. So that's just another thing is, you know, keeping that in mind. And then some dogs, every dog we say has like a safety bubble. You know, everyone has a bubble of which you want people in. Some dogs have a really big bubble, and we just have to kind of keep that in mind. The first day is usually a big learning experience for everyone, about every dog and every person. And after the kids leave at noon, we usually have a staff kind of come together about what, you know, the personalities that we have going on. Which, I mean, we have with every program and every camp, but this one also involves the personalities of the dogs.
Thanks. And also when you mentioned that one of them was an RN, that kind of brought to mind, like, should we have, like, especially when we bring that many like people and dogs together, should we have a registered nurse or someone who's trained in first aid there? Because like I know when we have these dog trainings, we're not trained in that. And the parents always stay for our program, but I'm just wondering, is there any requirements for that or no? Okay.
There's no requirements that I'm aware of for that, right?
No.
Like as a general tool, I always, when I was a county educator, is having first aid kits, right? Like having first aid kits with you, that type of stuff, right? And that's where your emergency contact comes in, and your health forms that you have for the kids is making sure you have all that on file just in case, right? You just never know. Right. And to have that with you, you know, if you're off campus, right, is to have that stuff with you, because it doesn't do you any good if you're 10 miles away, right, and you have an emergency.
So
Thanks.
we have, on top of that health contact form, we also have them fill out any health form on them. We have a specific dog adventure form, and it lists any of the kids' allergies and any of their health issues. That is a confidential form that I read and other staff reads, but other youth do not know about. As well as any issues or medical issues or allergies the individual dogs may have. Archie in this picture has lots of allergies. That's another fun thing about him. He's allergic to the world. And so that's really cool. That's why he has a toy and no treats. But so we have to keep that in mind. I, as a person, at my own expense, maintained CPR, first aid, and AED training. I have always felt that 4-H educators should be trained in those three things, and I'm kind of surprised that we're not required to. Just because we take custodial, you know, kids are dropped off at our programs, so we take custodial care of children. But yeah, so there is no requirement, but we do keep first aid kits. So yeah, on site.
Thank you, Rachel. There'll definitely be more time for questions at the end,
Yeah.
right? And same thing with you, Rachel, I think. And this is something that when I was in the county regularly, we had our CPR and first aid training, and I'm not sure if that's, and I believe there is a PW Wood rule policy about that, but I'm not 100% sure about that. That is a question for your executive directors, but I know we had to have certain number of people that were working with at-risk audiences, whether it's elderly or young, that were trained in that type of facility.
Okay.
Riley, are you ready?
I am.
You want to
So-
stop sharing screen, Rachel?
I do not have a PowerPoint prepared, but I have some papers that I'm gonna share. So Saratoga County, we do not have any clubs, which I wish we could get some going, but we don't have volunteers that are interested in running clubs. So I just do different programs throughout the year for our kids, which we have minimal kids who are interested in dog. So I do a couple programs for them each year. But our biggest thing that we do is we have a canine training program. So let me just share my screen. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to make it so I can see that. But so this is our like registration brochure. It's an 8-week program, and I don't do any of the training. I work with the Saratoga Kennel Club, so we have 5 volunteers from the Kennel Club who come in and they volunteer their time to teach. So for our 4-H part, we only do, they can do the whole program, but we're also opening it up to adults in our area. So it's CCE and 4-H working together. So our obedience classes are open to adults and youth, but our agility program is only opened up to the youth just because we have a lot of kids who sign up for it and are interested that we don't have enough room for the adults. And then so they complete all 8 weeks of this course and then they get a certificate at the end. And I have some also, sorry. So we go through and I have, if I can get to them. So each week they get a handout, the youth or adults, and it's basically a homework for them. So we start, week 1 is without the dog. They come in and just kind of get a informational session about what the program's going to look like from our volunteers. And then week 2 is the first week they bring their dogs. And we do this all out at our training center. So if there's bad weather, we usually cancel classes because it's outdoors usually at all times so that they have enough room to spread out. We usually have about 80 participants, but these are also adults and youth. So, but each week they go home with like homework on what they need to practice. We have a couple different, I've worked with the, with the volunteers to put together different obedience training for each week. So, and then we're also doing a district-wide dog show this year. So for a lot of people in my area, we don't have a lot of dog participants. So we came together and we're like, we want to do something instead of having a show at the fair, because my fairgrounds, it really doesn't accommodate for dogs. It's basically like a last minute thing and we maybe have 5 people competing. So we came together with all of our district educators and put together a dog show so that they actually can have competition. And so this is our first year doing it, but we're hoping that it's going to be successful and we continue to do it every year. So this can be like their qualifying run for state fair. That is all I have. So
Riley, how many counties are working on that dog show?
Fulton, Montgomery, Rensselaer, Schoharie, Saratoga, and Washington. So 5. And Rachel, I don't know if, I mean, I think Albany County is also included, but
Yes, I've been talking to our one dog leader about it. She said she would look over the stuff, but has not gotten back to me. So I'm not sure if we're having kids participate or not right now.
So you are most of the counties using that as their qualifier this year?
Yes.
yes.
And you're all doing that instead of having it during the county fair?
I think so Schoharie's still having it at the county fair, and I think so is Rensselaer, but we don't have enough youth to even put together a show at our county fair, so.
Interesting. Very good. Be interested to hear how that goes and how that works out for the kids. It's a great concept. Are there any questions for Rachel, Riley, or Christina? Are there any other questions? It's a great opportunity. So I know there's quite a few of you that are fairly new. So I did ask out the question, who asked that? Christina, I think you asked. Kristen, is she still on? Yep, she is. So I did ask the question out about what if the puppies are too young and unvaccinated. The answer I got back is if they're too young for rabies, are you too young to come? all right, to participate. All right, so they do need to have the rabies to participate. So it's kind of what I thought, but I was like, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's tricky because like my the person who teaches the course is very opinionated. She's like, I can provide research like that young puppies really should be introduced to other
Socialization.
dogs and interacting with others. So, but and normally what they'll do is like they'll be in the process of, I think it's like 2 shots, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is it-
and I
is it-
think if they get their first one, I think they're good.
It's okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like they just
Alright.
start getting that process because I think it's 12 and 16 weeks. They get the first one, then the booster. Right.
Okay.
So I think as long as they get that the process started, right?
Mhm.
Like they have the first one, they start. I mean, the second one is just basically a booster.
Okay.
To build it. So
Okay. Good to know. All right. Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate Christina Riley and Rachel sharing their stuff. I think it's some pretty cool stuff going across the state on that. Unfortunately, mine is just the boring topic of rules and regulations that none of us love to hear, but it's something we have to follow, right? The big thing is just remember it's following policy and making sure that the kids are, it's all about safety, right? It's all about safety for the kids and the dog and the families and the public. So whenever you've got something that's questionable, if it doesn't feel right with your gut, or if there's you finding a safety, it's definitely, err on the side of caution, right? Like just err on the side of caution as we continue to grow this program across the state. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. If you've got any questions, don't be afraid, specific for one of us. I'm sure the rest of them would, be more than willing to answer questions if you have a specific one to email them to. All right. Well, thank you guys and have a great rest of the day.
Bye.